So the most important book is the Bhagavad Gita as it is, followed by Srimad Bhagavatam. So Bhagavad Gita is like the school. Srimad Bhagavatam is like college. And then Chaitanya Charitamrita is like doing PhD. So it becomes more complex and more advanced as you progress through the sequence of books. And the Krishna book is basically a summary study of the 10th canto or 10th skanda of Srimad Bhagavatam. So Krishna book is also a part of Srimad Bhagavatam. And Srila Prabhupada wrote other books like Science of Self-Realization, which is an easy way to introduce devotees about self-realization, about liberation, about devotion, all these spiritual topics. And the next book that you see here is Srila Prabhupada's Leelamrita, which is his life story, written by Satsvarup Das Goswami, who is a disciple of Srila Prabhupada. And then you have Teachings of Lord Chaitanya. This is like a summary study of Chaitanya Charitamrita with a focus on what was the key aspects that he wanted to inculcate, like that.
Okay.
And then we have Nectar of Instruction, which is how a devotee should behave.
Okay.
Then Teachings of Lord Kapila. This is like a summary study of parts of the third canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Third and fourth, on what Kapila Dev taught. Then Sri Ishopanishad is one of the 108 Upanishads, which is considered a very important Upanishad. That's why Srila Prabhupada focused on that, not on the remaining 107 Upanishads. Also, although he quotes from these other Upanishads like Mundaka Upanishad, Swetatsvatara Upanishad, and various other Upanishads in his commentaries in Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam, so on. Again, Teachings of Queen Kunti, part of Srimad Bhagavatam, he extracted it, topical basically. What are the teachings of Lord Kapila? What are the teachings of Queen Kunti? Look, if you look at Srimad Bhagavatam, it is a compilation of teachings of various sages about Lord Krishna. So Bhagavad Gita is like the law book. Krishna gives in succinct 700 laws, like do this, don't do this, like that. Whereas if you go to Srimad Bhagavatam, that law is in action now. How to do certain things and how not to do certain things. So various acharyas like Kapila, Kunti Devi, Dhruva Maharaj, Prahlad Maharaj, all these different individuals provide that input. So those are topical books that Srila Prabhupada compiled. But ultimately, Srimad Bhagavatam is 18,000 verses. And if you learn that, that is like everything that you need to know, understand art, psychology, philosophy, music, engineering, everything is there in the 18,000 verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. Then the chapter 2.
Does Srimad, sorry to interrupt. I understand like Srimad Bhagavatam is like a compilation of bigger stories. And where does that exactly start from? It starts from the birth of Krishna or even way before, like, the first mankind ever started on earth, something like that.
Srimad Bhagavatam is like a recollection. Sometimes A is recollecting about B is recollecting about C. And sometimes we go 3 levels deep. C is recollecting about D. So this Srimad Bhagavatam starts when Parikshit Maharaj goes to a forest, and he, after a full day of hunting, he goes to a sage's ashram, and then he tries to engage in a conversation with the sage. The sage is deep in meditation and he doesn't pay attention. So he thinks, oh, I'm the king, and then you are not giving respect to your king. So he takes a dead snake and puts it around that sage's neck. The sage is still in meditation. He doesn't care. However, the sage's son, Shringi, comes and he says, oh, how dare this king disrespect my father by putting a dead snake around his neck. So just like he put a dead snake around the neck, he will die of a snake bite, Takshaka's snake bite, in 7 days. So having seen that, Parikshit Maharaj doesn't get bewildered. He says, oh, I'm going to die in 7 days. So he doesn't try to take care of his retirement money. He doesn't try to consolidate his kingdom. He says, anyhow, I only have 7 days to die. So let me focus on the spiritual aspects. And just at that time, his guru, Sukdev Goswami, comes. So he just sits in front of his guru for 7 days and nights, no eating, no sleeping, just listening to Krishna Katha, which Sukdev Goswami recites. So Srimad Bhagavatam basically goes into a deep dive of the various topics. It talks about creation, like the first one is creation. Second time is cosmic manifestation. How was the cosmos manifested? Then here is the status quo, where you see Kapila Dev is instructing his mother, Devahuti. So normally mothers instruct sons, but here son is so elevated, he is instructing his mother. Then again goes into more depth of creation. Then it talks about the creative impetus. What are the various elements, like, how everything originates from the Supreme Lord, how it all expands, earth, water, fire, air, ether get manifested, Mahat Tattva gets manifested, the 3 modes of material nature, like goodness, passion, ignorance get manifested. And from there, all these universes get created. There are various kinds of Vishnus, like Karnodakshaya Mahavishnu, Garbhodakshaya Mahavishnu, Kshirodakshaya Mahavishnu. So all this expansion happens. And then how the universes get created, how various jivas like you and me are introduced into these universes, everything gets added. And then the prescribed duties for mankind are described in Canto 6, the science of God in Canto 7, where Prahlad Maharaj, Prahlad is a small boy, right? 5-year-old, 6-year-old boy. At that age, he has the full knowledge of the Lord, and his father Hiranyakashipu starts troubling him. So he basically says the Lord is everywhere, and the father says he's the Lord in this pillar. As Hiranyakashipu beats the pillar up, Lord manifests as half man, half lion incarnation and kills Hiranyakashipu and rescues his devotee Prahlad. So in this way, the science of God is given. Prahlad Maharaj gives a lot of description. In Canto 8, you have Vamanadev come down as a small Brahmin boy to reduce the pride of the demoniac king. So he basically asks for 3 feet of ground by begging from the king. The king thinks, okay, 3 feet is very little, so I'll give it. So he takes all of earth in one leg, all of the earthly realm. Earth is just one planet. The realm is much bigger. Then all of the heavens in the second, and the third one, he says, where do I put? He says, okay, you put on my head. And in this way, Bali Maharaj, who was the proud king, gets sent down to Sutala, which is a planetary system of 4 levels deep under the earth, earthly realm. So in this way, and then there's a talk about how the creations are withdrawn. First, it is created and how creations are withdrawn, how the bodies get annihilated and how the soul ascends back to the spiritual world. All that information is given. And then that continues in Canto 9 in terms of liberation. And in Canto 10, this is the life story of Krishna. So although Krishna is mentioned throughout Cantos 1 through 9, Canto 10 is the Summum Bonum. That is the life story of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva Krishna. So, and then comes Canto 11, the general history of after the Mahabharata war, how everything is going down and how all the kingdoms are deteriorated by Canto 12. All the description is given. And then there are no more kings left. It becomes anarchy. Then it becomes like all Shudra type people, and how this Kali Yuga will be annihilated once Kalki comes, right? So all of that information is covered in Canto 12. So there are 12 cantos, 18 volumes of the Srimad Bhagavatam. In that, the entire history of creation, dissolution, deterioration of material realms, deterioration of people, Satyam, Saucham, Kshama, Daya, Kalena, Balina, Rajan. So all of that is discussed, how everything gets destroyed over a period of time. So Srimad Bhagavatam goes into very, very deep detail Bhagavad Gita is quick, right? No, you have to do karma yoga, you have to do jnana yoga, dhyana yoga, ashtanga yoga, but bhakti yoga is best. So Bhagavad Gita is like first 6 chapters is the yoga ladder of how the soul ascends from being an animal to becoming a human, practicing
Prabhuji,
karma. Yeah.
Just one question here. So you have been telling about this dhyana yoga, bhakti yoga, right? So I've been meditating. I also do meditation. So how is it different from bhakti yoga? Like
Bhakti
is
yoga,
dhyana yoga a better way to reach the salvation, or the bhakti yoga?
so it is like this, like there is the yoga ladder. So all of these different yogas are like the horizontal bars of that ladder. So you can go back to the spiritual world by karma yoga. You can go back by dhyana yoga. You can go back by ashtanga yoga, and dhyana is a part of ashtanga yoga. You can go back by jnana yoga. That is also one horizontal bar on that ladder. But it takes longer time. Like karma yoga, you may require 10,000 lifetimes. Jnana yoga, you may require 1,000 lifetimes. Dhyana yoga, you may require 500 lifetimes, for example. With bhakti yoga, technically you can go back liberation in one lifetime, but usually it will take about 3 or 4 lifetimes because we may not be able to purify ourselves in one lifetime fully. So bhakti yoga is like a high-speed elevator. Other things are like you could take the stairs to go to Empire State Building in New York, or you can take the elevator. Obviously, elevator is faster. So if you are serious about quicker liberation, you take to bhakti yoga. I mean, you and I have been doing various types of yoga through many of our lifetimes, but we are still here. We didn't get liberated. Why? Because it takes longer time. But bhakti yoga is like a high-speed elevator. So technically in one lifetime, worst case, 3 or 4 lifetimes, you're done. You can get liberated. And Krishna also says in Bhagavad Gita that if we are sincere and in the next lifetime, we will remember where we stopped. Like the fact that you are asking this question means you must have stopped in last lifetime, certain amount of dhyana yoga, certain amount of bhakti yoga, and now you are re-inquiring to continue your journey in this lifetime.
Yeah, kind of, yes.
So, I mean, just Bhagavad Gita is sufficient to get liberation, but Srimad Bhagavatam gives you more information, right? For kids, you cannot teach theory from a textbook. If you give them comics, they can learn faster. Same thing here. Through stories and narrations in Srimad Bhagavatam and other Puranas, you can accelerate your journey. That's essentially what it is. So all of these books are expansion of Srimad Bhagavatam, literally, and Chaitanya Charitamrita. This little book, it's only like 30 pages, and it is available online as well as free of, $2 in the temple. It gives you what is bhakti, right? How do you quickly come to bhakti and how do you quickly get liberated? Only 30 pages, small book.
Okay.
Then civilization and transcendence.
But really, how does one transform into that? Like, how can you can get yourself into bhakti marga?
Yeah,
I am a devotee of Krishna. I pray. I do everything, but bhakti, like, I don't know. I don't get it really.
Yeah, no,
like
that's a good
fully.
question.
Yeah.
So how to transform? Begin by chanting Hare Krishna every day, right? What that does is it purifies our consciousness and the layers surrounding us. That is step one. Then you follow by fasting on Ekadasi and key dates like Janmashtami, Sri Rama Navami, Ugadi, etc. Many days like that, right? Like Krishna Janmashtami, Sri Ram Navami, Ugadi, etc. So more purification. So ultimately, it is all about purification of our consciousness and the layers surrounding us. Then what do? Active principle of seva. So what do? Service in the temple. Sometimes people say you can serve other human beings, but you cannot serve everybody. So when you serve in the temple, you serve the root of the universal tree. And that root of the universal tree is Sri Krishna. This is covered in chapter 15 of Bhagavad Gita. So what you do is you serve the root, everybody else is served, right? Just by doing kirtan to the Lord, you are serving other people, other humanity. If somebody is afflicted with diseases, just because you are chanting for the Lord, other people's problems go down, people around you, right? So serving the root solves problems of serving everybody else. Active principle of seva. And then chanting improves. Austerity, like fasting, charity. So you do charity for propagation of Lord's glories. All these things improve. So in this way, there is a lot of improvement gradually, right? And then what happens? Your seva improves. You will seek more service. So why am I teaching this class? Because this is my service to the Lord, right? So my seva also improves. And then you take diksha or initiation to get guidance from the spiritual master or guru, and continue. What do you continue? You continue the same thing again: chanting, service, austerity, charity, etc. As simple as that. And before you know, you will not even know that you are liberated. You will naturally come to the platform of liberation. Whereas in like dhyana yoga, you have to forcefully perform meditation. Here, you are meditating, but you are meditating on the holy name. You are just like a yogi doesn't eat a lot of things. You're also refraining from eating a lot of things. This month is Kartik month, Kartik Masa. And a lot of people are fasting. Some people fast from sweets. Some people fast from grains, right? Some people fast from whatever they like the most, they just give it up. So all that is again austerity. Austerity means you like something, you just give it up. Like Dhruva Maharaj was at one point, his austerity went to the point where he stopped breathing. First, he would take one breath every 6 seconds, later on every hour, like that. And finally he said, okay, why should I even breathe? He stopped breathing. So because of his severe austerity, he became so heavy that the earth started tilting across the axis and all the devatas were worried, right? So they all go to Brahma and say, okay, why don't you stop? And then with Brahma takes all of these devatas, goes to Vishnu and requests him, my Lord, your devotee is doing Ghor Tapasya. Go and talk to him. Because of his extreme austerity, the balance within the universe is getting disturbed. Right? So this is, you will not even know when the liberation is happening. It will happen automatically. Naturally, I should say, not automatically, naturally.
Okay.
So these are the steps and you will enjoy these steps, right? So devotional life, the difference between dhyana And Ashtanga Yoga is devotional life is pleasing to the heart, not tough like Jnana or Ashtanga Yoga. For example, you see the best Ashtanga yogi is Vishwamitra. But then when Indra sent Menaka, he got disturbed because you are forcibly doing it, whereas here you are naturally doing it. So that is what we should focus on, and then everything will automatically fall into place. So everybody can transform.
Okay.
It is not so difficult. Everybody can transform. So what are your thoughts on that one? So let's get back here. So there are various books, right? Second Chance, what happens at the time of death. Ajamila Upakhyanam from Srimad Bhagavatam. The person called Ajamila was very sinful, but then he named his son Narayana. At the time of death, he was calling his son Narayana, and the Devatas, Devadutas, the Vishnu Dutas thought that he was chanting Lord Narayana's name. So name is so powerful that they come and take him away to Vishnu Loka. Yamadutas came. Initially Yamadutas came because he was sinful. They were trying to take him to hell. But because he chanted the name of Narayana, the Vishnu Dutas came too. And then they started challenging the Yamadutas. No, you cannot take him. He's a great devotee because Antakala Chamameva Smaran Muktva Kalevaram. At the time of leaving the Kalevara, he chanted Lord Narayana's name. So therefore he should come with us. And then
Prabhuji, I have one more question. Sorry to interrupt you again. So why like those devatas and God, everyone like Krishna, everyone, they were visible to the common people, right? Those times. Why is it not happening in this present yuga? Is there any specific reason?
Yeah, there is a very specific reason, because people are not very clean in the Kali Yuga, right? People take bath once in 3 days, once in 2 days. The houses are not clean. They don't really, the heart is not clean. They cook with oil. We should cook with only ghee. Devatas eat only food cooked in ghee. So there are many, many reasons why Devatas don't come. Previously, there was a continuous hyperloop between the Devaloka or Swargaloka and planet Earth. There was a lot of interchange between these planets, as you can read in the Srimad Bhagavatam and various other scriptures. But because people became so, and people don't even write, people wake up late in the night, morning, right? So people should wake up early in the morning, 4:30. People wake up at 7. So Devata's time is 4 to 4:30. Devatas wake up and take bath at 4 to 4:30, and then they worship Krishna. And at that time, we are all sleeping because we are watching TV till night 11 o'clock. Right? So our life has become topsy-turvy. As a result, Devatas don't like to come anymore.
Okay.
But that is what Swami Prabhupada is trying to do. He's trying to make Devatas out of us. He's trying to get us back into that groove. Because who are Devatas? They are advanced devotees. They have direct access to Krishna. We have indirect access to Krishna. Right? Even not all Devatas have direct access. They also have to go through some processes. So by following all these principles of devotion, we might transfer into Devata, but although we don't want to become Devatas, we want to directly get liberated and go and play with Krishna in the spiritual world. Any thoughts on that one?
No, Prabhuji, I'm good.
One other beautiful book is called Nectar of Devotion. which talks about, it's called Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu in Sanskrit. And it talks about what is devotion, what are the different divisions of devotion, stages of devotion, and how to achieve devotion. And this book, Raja Vidya, is a summary of parts of Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam. This knowledge is for kings and sages.
10 o'clock.
Okay, sure. Okay. Okay, sure.
Something
okay.
Please, something.
So Raja Vidya means king of knowledge. Raja Vidya, Raja Guhyam, Param, Idam Param Pavitram, Pratyakshawaham Dharmam, Susukam Kartum Avyayam. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita. So this is the knowledge of kings and sages. And of course, because of Swami Prabhupada's mercy, common men like me are learning this knowledge. Otherwise, this knowledge is highly secretive. Guhyam means secret. So Srila Prabhupada does parts of the Bhagavad Gita extract, and then he gives this knowledge in a smaller book. Because what happened was when Prabhupada came to America in 1966, his focus was not on Hindus or Indians or anything. His focus was on Westerners, trying to teach this knowledge to the Western world. So he extracted this knowledge in simple to understand English books. And then those books are still available. And even for us who grew up in India, it's very difficult to directly access Bhagavad Gita, Srimad Bhagavatam. So we go through these introductory books. I went through some of these before I understood Bhagavad Gita. It took me, believe it or not, about 8 years to kind of understand Bhagavad Gita, although it's only 700 verses. I did the course twice, and then I understood what it is. And then this is the Brahma Samhita, which is Brahma's prayers to the Supreme Lord and describing what the processes are, like that. So Brahma says, Govindamadi Purusham Tamaham Bhajami Ishvara Parama Krishna Sachidananda Vigraha Anadiradir Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. So there are many Ishvaras, many Indra type of controllers. But the Parama Ishvara, Maheshwara is Shiva, and Parama Ishvara is even higher than Shiva is Krishna or Vishnu forms. Like Parvati asks her husband, oh Shiva, I thought you are supreme. Who are you meditating on? So he says, this is in the Srimad Bhagavatam 3rd canto again. He says, I am meditating on my boss, who is Krishna. So Shiva tries to meet Krishna in Vrindavan, but he's not allowed because only gopis can enter there. So he's not that. So he tries to pretend to be a gopi and he gets caught. So then Lord Krishna says, okay, this is only for gopis, but you can be at the entrance of the Vrindavan. That's why there is a temple called Gopeshwar Shiva in Vrindavan. So he becomes like the Dwarapalaka for Krishna. Although he's, from a material perspective, he's the Maheshwara. For all of us, he's like a very important person. But he himself takes a very humble position of serving Krishna as the Dwarapalaka for Goloka Vrindavan. Like that. But again, Shiva can expand. So while he's there in the Goloka Vrindavan, he's there in Kailasha, and he's there as the 13 Rudras in our planet Earth, in our universe. So he's also has the same potency, similar potency like Krishna, that he can expand many times over. So Parama Ishvara, Ishvara, Parama, Krishna, Sachidananda Vigraha. Sat means eternity, Chit means consciousness, Ananda means bliss. So God is Sachidananda Vigraha, we are also Sachidananda Vigraha. But then we are covered by this Asat, Achit and Nirananda bodies. That's why we don't have Ananda, headache, toothache, backache, all problems with this body. Because this Sachidananda soul is now trapped in this Nirananda body. And liberation means when the soul gets purified and it leaves this body and goes back to the spiritual world. So that is the summary of the books, some of the books. The Prabhupada wrote a lot many, but some of these books are presented here in this website called vedabase.io. So thoughts and questions.
Yeah, definitely this website looks interesting. I'll go through and start reading these books one by one.
One of the thing is you can come with your husband and kids also to these classes. Not everybody will understand everything, but they will understand something that is very beneficial to them.
Yeah.
I don't know how old your kids are, but in order for them to get benefit, then they need to kind of hear. They have to be a certain age to understand. This is very deep subject matter. But surely you should bring your husband, because wife and husband, when there's a saying, a family that prays together stays together.
Yes, true. Truly said. Yeah.
Okay, so what would you like to learn? There is a vast ocean of knowledge. It will take us all 30 years to learn. Everything is on that on this page. But we need to pick and choose what. And again, knowledge can be acquired from any angle. You start somewhere and then just keep acquiring. I'm acquiring every day, and this will continue over multiple lifetimes.
Okay, Prabhuji. Nothing is coming to my mind. Can we take this in the next class? I'll think of do you go chapter by chapter in the Bhagavad Gita, or how do you do?
We go chapter by chapter for my Friday evening class, but today being Govardhan Puja, most of the students have gone to the temple, and I will also go there after we conclude here.
Okay.
And you are welcome to come and join us in the temple as well. But the point I'm trying to make is we go chapter by chapter in the Friday class, but then on self-study, you can go through other books also. So we are in third chapter, Karma Yoga. Actually, we are Karma Yoga on the Sunday batch. Sunday, I teach a batch 4:45 p.m. to 5:45 p.m. In Friday batch, we are in the last chapter. So after I finish the last chapter, I'll again start with the first chapter.
Oh, okay. Sure. Sure, then. I'll try to join the Sunday batch too.
So you feel the Sunday batch is better for you?
Yeah, because there's more to